Hello and welcome to a special interview with someone who was Foreign Secretary in 1984 at the time of the Bhopal gas leak when Warren Anderson visited India. Did Warren Anderson ask for and receive safe passage? And did Mr. Anderson meet senior officials of the Government of India whilst he was in the country? Those are two of many issues that I shall explore today with the Foreign Secretary of the time, Maharaj Krishna Rasgotra. Mr. Rasgotra, let's start with Warren Anderson. In 1984, when he visited India, shortly after the Bhopal gas leak, did he request for safe passage?
Yes, indeed, he did, through the United States Embassy here.
Now, in fact, Gordon Strebe, the American Deputy Chief of Mission at the time, who was Chargé d'Affaires in Ambassador Barnes' absence, has gone on record to say that Strebe contacted you with this request. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. It's not wrong. Strebe, the ambassador, Harry Barnes, was out of station, I think, out of India at the time. And the Chargé contacted me. He was entitled to do so.
And what exactly did the Chargé say to you?
Well, you know, it's 26 years ago, so I can't produce the exact words. But he said Anderson wanted to come. There was a tragic situation. He wanted to see things for himself. He wanted to offer his condolences. But he will come only if he's granted safe passage.
And what did you say?
Well, I said, I can't assure you of the safe passage. I'll have to consult the concerned authorities and I'll get back to you.
And what did you do?
Well, you know, the Ministry of External Affairs cannot grant safe passage. Foreign Secretary doesn't have those powers. I got in touch with the Home Ministry. I got in touch with the Cabinet Secretary, because those are the people. Safe passage had to be assured in Bhopal itself, not in Delhi. So they had to get in touch with the authorities there in the state. Foreign Secretary does not normally get in touch with the state authorities. Now, so I told them what the Chargé has asked me for, and I awaited their instructions.
In the end, was safe passage granted?
It was, yes.
How long did the process take?
Well, no, not very long. The same day.
The same day?
Yes.
At the time, and in the circumstances that prevailed, was this an understandable request or was it an unusual request?
Well, I think it was quite understandable request. The man wanted to come, express his condolences, sorrow. I thought it was quite understandable, and if he wanted to come, we should let him come.
So would I be right in concluding that there was no real problem that the Government of India had in granting safe passage?
Not really, no.
At the time, Rajiv Gandhi was not just Prime Minister, he was also Foreign Minister, which of course made him in that capacity your immediate boss. Was Rajiv Gandhi consulted or informed?
Rajiv Gandhi was not in Delhi. And I felt that really the Home Ministry was concerned. And they will do the needful, which they did.
So you, as Foreign Secretary, did not contact Rajiv Gandhi at all yourself?
No, you know, in those days, you didn't have emails. You didn't have mobile telephones. I think he was electioneering. I don't know exactly where he was. He was not Delhi. He was not immediately available to me.
So he wasn't consulted during the process of making the decision. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes.
But was he informed afterwards that safe passage had been asked for and granted?
Well, naturally, he would have been learned, he would have been informed afterwards by the PMO.
And did he object to the granting of safe passage, or did he concur with that decision?
Obviously, he concurred with that decision, but that was after the event.
Quite right. He found out after, but he concurred. He didn't object. He didn't raise any objection whatsoever.
No. But as I said, he was not consulted beforehand.
But he was informed afterwards?
Afterwards, yes.
Fully informed?
Yes.
Now, as it happens, when Warren Anderson reached Bhopal on the 7th of December, he was arrested. Would that arrest therefore have been a breach of promise?
Well, I would say yes. He was given safe passage. But then the arrest was wrong, and the authorities, I think, realized that that was a bad thing to do, and they released him.
Now, as you said, you contacted the Home Ministry to process the request for safe passage, and they in turn had to ensure that safe passage was available in Bhopal. You said it was in Bhopal that it mattered, not Delhi. So when Arjun Singh arrested Anderson, did this mean Arjun Singh was uninformed and unaware of the safe passage, or was he being defiant?
Did Arjun Singh really arrest him, or the administrative authorities, the police arrested him? I can't say. Now in Delhi, you see, I think Narasimha Rao was Home Minister. He had been my Foreign Minister, and I was happy, I was content to leave matters with him, with the Home Ministry, Home Secretary and others I consulted.
But you're suggesting that the arrest in Bhopal may not have happened either at Arjun Singh's instructions or even possibly with Arjun Singh's knowledge. It might have been the administration doing it without the Chief Minister being in the loop.
Possibly. I can't be definite about it, but it could happen, yes.
Now, after Warren Anderson was arrested, Gordon Streeb says he found out, and he immediately got in touch with you again. What did he say?
No, that I don't recall, that he found out and he came back to me. No.
He said so on television, that he came back to you.
That he was arrested?
That's right. He says that he came back to you or to the Foreign Ministry. And he says that most of his communication with the Foreign Ministry was in fact with you.
No, naturally. The head of mission would be in touch with the Foreign Secretary. That was understandable.
But you don't recall him coming back to you after Anderson's arrest?
I don't precisely recall that, but he may well have done that, in which case I would have gotten back to the Home Ministry. They would have gotten back to Bhopal, the administration there.
Now, when Anderson was arrested and thereafter released, was Rajiv Gandhi informed or consulted about the fact that a promise given by the government of India had been either advertently or inadvertently breached?
That I cannot really comment on, because the Prime Minister's office would have done that. I do not recall being in touch with the then Prime Minister in this case. He was not, Prime Minister really was not involved in this.
So if I understand you correctly, you as Foreign Secretary in the Foreign Ministry were clearly, as you say, involved in arranging and processing the safe passage. The request came to you, you passed it on to the Home Office, but you don't recall whether Gordon Streeb contacted you after Anderson was arrested, and you don't recall whether you had to contact the Home Office at that point.
I don't precisely recall that, but I may have done that.
You may have done so.
I may have done.
So it's quite possible you don't remember, but you may have had to contact the Home Ministry and say, you've arrested the man, you need to release him,
That's
this is a
right.
mistake.
Yes, indeed.
And you're clear about one thing, that arresting him was a mistake, it was a breach of promise.
It was, yes. The man came on the understanding that he would have safe passage.
Therefore, it also follows that releasing him was the right thing to do.
Of course, it was the right thing to do.
If he hadn't been released, I take it this would have had repercussions with the American Embassy and possibly with the American State Department as well.
Well, may I go back a little? You see, we were living at that time in a very difficult phase. Indira Gandhi had been assassinated. Before that, there was the temple in Amritsar.
Operation Blue Star.
Yes, Blue Star. There were half a dozen mutinies in India. Assassination, Rajiv, a new Prime Minister, a looming election. And the unrest in Delhi itself, followed by Indira Gandhi's assassination. Now, in these circumstances, if, let us say, this gentleman, Anderson, had been arrested and tried in India unilaterally, would the corporates anywhere in the world, or the countries who were interested in India's well-being, progress, would they look at India in those circumstances?
So what you're saying is that releasing him was the right thing to do, and it was clearly in India's interest.
It was obviously in India's interest, and I, as India's Foreign Secretary, when I proffered this request to Home Ministry and others, I had to take into account those circumstances.
Uppermost in your mind at that time when you proffered this request to the Home Ministry was India's powerless economic state, the uncertainty, the need to maintain good relations with America, and the need to ensure a flow of investment from the West.
The economy was in poor shape. Politically, there were uncertainties. India needed investments. Would investors, intending investors, if this man, let's say, let me put it crudely, there was a law and order problem in Bhopal at the time. If the mob had gotten hold of him, lynched him, or if we had just having given safe passage assurance, arrested him, kept him in detention for a long time, you would have a running feud with the United States of America. What good would that do to India's image?
Mr. Rasgotra, let's take a break at that point. When I come back, I want to ask you what happened after Anderson was released and came to Delhi. Who did he meet and what did he say? That's in a moment's time. Don't go away. Welcome back to this exclusive interview with the man who was Foreign Secretary in 1984 at the time of the Bhopal gas leak when Warren Anderson visited India, M K Rasgotra. All right, let's now come to what happened after Warren Anderson was released by Bhopal, put on a government plane and brought to Delhi. You were Foreign Secretary at the time. Did Warren Anderson meet you?
Yes, he met me. Before leaving for home, he met me, I think, on the advice of the Charge d'Affaires of the U.S.
Gordon Street.
Yes, Gordon Street. They must have told him that I had been helpful in some way, so he might come over and thank me, which he did.
Now, I want to ask you about that meeting. Did he come on his own or was he accompanied by American embassy officials?
No, he came on his own.
All on his own?
He came alone, yes.
It was a solo visit?
Yes.
What did he say to you?
Well, he looked deeply troubled, bedraggled, very sad, sorrowful, remorseful, and he said to me, I am shattered by what I've seen. Mr. Rasgotra, it will be my endeavor. We can't undo what has happened. It will be my endeavor to ensure a generous compensation package for those who had suffered.
Two quick questions. This emotion that he showed, did you believe it was genuine or was it being put on?
Well, no, it couldn't be put on, you see. I mean, you can see from a man's face. He was deeply disturbed.
He was genuinely, deeply disturbed?
Yes, yes.
He was genuinely remorseful?
I think so.
The second question, he committed himself to the fullest compensation for the people of Bhopal?
Fullest, I don't know, but he said he would work for a generous compensation.
Did he accept in that conversation the responsibility of Union Carbide for what had happened?
Well, naturally, when he said, I will try and work out a very generous package, he accepted responsibility.
He accepted responsibility?
Yes, yes.
You have no doubt about that?
It's implied that he accepted responsibility.
Anderson at the time was out on bail. Did he in that conversation with you make any commitment to return if he was required by the investigators or the courts?
No, he didn't. And in fact, to be frank with you, I didn't know that he was on bail.
You had no idea?
I had no idea.
So even
I said the man had been granted safe passage and there was some mishap in Bhopal, but he was then let off, put on a plane and sent to
This
Delhi.
is a very important thing. You were Foreign Secretary, you helped process the request for safe passage, you were aware that he'd been arrested, but you weren't aware he'd been released on bail.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't.
You thought that he had simply been released and the arrest in some sense had been reversed?
That's right, yes.
You didn't check with him or with anyone else how he had been released?
No, I saw him as a matter of courtesy. I didn't have to see him.
How long was he with you for?
Oh, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, something like it. It's a brief meeting.
Was this meeting at your office in South Block?
Office, yes.
At the Foreign Secretary's office?
Office, yes.
So it's possible that the footage that we're seeing at the moment of Warren Anderson clearly outside what looks like South Block might have been when he was either calling on you or departing from that meeting?
Yes, either way, yes.
Roughly what time of day would this have been?
I don't recall exactly. I think it was late afternoon.
Late afternoon?
Yes, or early afternoon. It was afternoonish.
Did Warren Anderson, either after meeting you in Delhi or before, meet the President of India?
I've been reading reports in the press that he met Gyaniji. I made no appointments of any kind for him. I also read reports that he met Narasimha Raoji. He must have, either the embassy or he directly must have made those appointments.
But you as Foreign Secretary or the Foreign Office under you did not seek an appointment for Anderson to meet either the President or the Home Minister?
No, I don't recall doing any such thing.
Is it possible that he might have met either the President or the Home Minister without you or the Foreign Office knowing about it?
Possible, yes.
It is possible?
It is possible.
So these reports that
but
he
the President meets a number of people, so does the Home Minister. They don't necessarily ask the Foreign Secretary whether they should meet them, receive them or not.
So it's quite possible that Anderson met the President and the Home Minister without your being aware or without your ministry being aware?
That's right, it could be. Could well be, yes.
Did Anderson fly out of Delhi and India that night, the 7th night?
Well, he left, he told me that he was leaving that night, and he must have gone out that night. I didn't hear further about this.
Just one meeting and you heard nothing thereafter?
I heard nothing further about it. Then you also recall, you see, I was due to retire 4 or 6 weeks after these events. 8
You
weeks.
retired in February 85.
February
this was
85,
early December,
yes.
so roughly 2 months later.
That's right, yes. And I was busy with a number of other things also, you know, gradual transfer of responsibility to my successor.
So
also.
Anderson did not crop up again at all?
At all. And I lost, completely lost touch with this affair. When I retired, I went into hibernation here in Delhi.
A couple of general questions. Was there any pressure from Washington beyond the request made to you by Gordon Strebe, the Deputy Chief of Vision? Was there any direct pressure from the White House?
I can't say whether there was or not, but I tell you something. The Sharjah affair came to me applying not any kind of pressure at all. There was a sense of distress. He made a request, which I then dealt with, as I have explained.
The press is speculating.
And at the time, I did not hear that President Reagan had called up our Prime Minister. I heard nothing of the sort. I think there's probably later inventions.
You say it could be later inventions, but is it possible that the White House or President Reagan may have rung the Prime Minister without you as Foreign Secretary knowing?
Well, they could, yes.
It is possible.
It is possible in the sense, I mean, Prime Minister has his own staff, people, office. But I heard nothing of the kind. I was there in office for another 2 months or so. We didn't hear any such thing.
Afterwards, did Rajiv Gandhi ever express any concern, disquiet or regret about the fact that Anderson had been released and then let out of the country?
No, I don't recall any such conversation with me after that.
No conversations about this at all?
No, I don't recall any such thing.
So no questioning, no remorse, no regret from Rajiv Gandhi's part?
Remorse about what? I mean, the Prime Minister must have been distressed about what happened in
No,
Bhutan.
I'm talking about releasing Anderson.
No.
No regret, nothing?
No regret.
He never questioned that thereafter?
He never questioned that.
In other words, he was completely in agreement, not just with the decision to give safe passage, but he was also in agreement with the decision to release him and let him leave the country.
Clearly, yes, because there was no question about this. But as I said to you, in the process of dealing with the request, I had no occasion to consult the Prime Minister, and Rajiv Gandhi was not in any way involved in this.
Quite right. But if the Prime Minister had wanted to question the decision to arrest and then to release and let the man leave the country, clearly you would have been one of the people he'd have questioned.
Oh, then he would have summoned me, yes.
And he didn't do anything of the sort?
He didn't do any such thing, no.
My last question, would you say, with hindsight, that granting safe passage to Anderson, then releasing him after he was wrongly arrested, and finally permitting him to leave the country, that all three were clearly the right thing to do and in India's interest?
Well, I can't say arresting him was the right thing, but I think granting the free passage was the right thing to do, and letting him go was the right thing to do.
Mr. Rasgotra, a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Thank you.